USC will head to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I believe, is playing its fourth straight primetime game and fourth straight game against a ranked opponent for the fourth straight primetime. It's first time in program history, four straight ranked, fourth time in program history. This team has to be exhausted. That's the number one question. Now, you get to come home and, by the way, if they beat Ohio State and then they steal that game against Duke, I think they might have won that game at Louisville, right? They were exhausted. But if you're undefeated, right, your kids, it's easier to get up for that. However, I'll tell you why maybe that's not true, because last week was a disaster for Notre Dame. And by the way, every time you see Notre Dame now come out, Ohio State looks worse. And every time you see Ohio State, they look worse. Like, Ohio State should have lost to Notre Dame. So Notre Dame last week goes to Louisville, obviously just at the end of a gauntlet, the schedule that started off in Ireland. For what it's worth, Notre Dame does lead the country in points scored per game overseas, if you're curious. They lead the country of scoring in Ireland. But last week, they go to Louisville, and we talked about it. The spot was awful. So that they lost. Is it surprising that they lost? No. But how it happened? Yes. So what Elko did 2 weeks ago is he just said, we're loading the box, and we're going to force you to beat us with your receivers, and we're going to take away the run. Louisville did the same thing. 9 in the box. We're not going to let you run. And your receivers, who are underwhelming and or hurt, flashed early in the season against an underwhelming schedule, haven't been great of late. And Gerard Parker has deteriorated. I don't know what's going on with the play calling. Most curious of all, they decided we're gonna be like an NBA team that subs 5 in and 5. We're gonna just sub our offensive linemen all game. We're gonna have an offensive line rotation in the interior, and they were subbing in and out guys. Maybe they were worried about the fatigue. The results were disastrous. I'm not a fan of that. The offensive line's all about continuity, right? Reading the D. Like, I don't know what they were doing. The play calling was also horrible. They didn't adjust at all to what Louisville was doing and what Duke did the week before. And it led to 5 turnovers and a loss. So now you fast forward and then meanwhile, USC should have lost to Arizona. Go for 2. Jesus. USC's been playing with their food because their defense stinks. But if you look back to last year, USC's defense also was horrible. But against Notre Dame, they pretty much said, we're going to stop the run, loaded the box. We're able to do so. And that's the handicap here. Notre Dame's defense has been good, right? And their secondary is good. They've been put in some compromised situations due to the offense of late. The defense is good, but you're not going to completely slow down this USC attack. So I assume that USC is going to come in here and they're going to say, we're going to stop the run. We've seen although who knows with this USC defensive staff, they'll probably drop 8 and let Notre Dame run for 300. But if they have a brain, they're just going to load the box, and no matter how bad they've been playing, and their run defensive stats are awful. You have that many guys in the box, you can stop it. Anyone can stop. Most teams can stop the run. It leaves you exposed on the outside. But Notre Dame hasn't proved that they can do anything about that. And USC is at least getting pressure, getting into the backfield. So 2 questions I have for you before you share your thoughts. One, can we expect Notre Dame, and the weather might help Notre Dame here if it is windy and rainy. Can we expect Notre Dame, or should we expect Notre Dame to be up for this game after this stretch? Or are they just going to be so fatigued? It is at home against USC, but are they going to, and they've been wearing down in the second halves of games. And then 2, can we expect USC, like they did last year, to just take away this Notre Dame rush attack, which, if you do, seems to just completely hamper the Irish offense? What do you see here? Notre Dame's 2.5 3-point favorite here for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame lost 38-27 last year out in LA. A little bit of a surprising outcome there, but you wonder if the revenge factor is being talked about by Marcus Freeman in this spot, or the fact that Sam Hartman, who might have hopes of winning the Heisman is going up against the reigning Heisman winner. So there should be plenty of motivation here. Plus, you're off of a loss. So I would think Notre Dame has all the motivation here, and hopefully Freeman practices them light and tells them all to get 10 hours of sleep in bed and enjoy being in that nice, cold South Bend weather with some rain coming in, which I think completely helps Notre Dame here, especially Audric Estime, getting through the USC defensive front seven. He averages 4.4 yards after contact. He's created a ton of missed tackles. And right now, USC is 111th in tackle grading. So you can see, there's one stat that Sports Info Solutions puts out, which is broken tackle rate. And USC just is arm tackling university is what they should be called. So are they going to load the box? Maybe, because Audric Estime looks like they could absolutely bulldoze this defense. And if not, then the expectation is that Sam Hartman's going to be able to throw all over the USC defense. This Trojans defense, I don't know if I should go through all the stats. I mean, you gave up 41 to Arizona, 41 to Colorado, 28 to San Jose State, 28 to Arizona State. Hartman has struggled with cover one so far this year, but USC is pretty mediocre in success rate with cover one, and they only run it about 16% of the time. So we're going to see if that back seven has enough, which they haven't shown me anything. And passing downs are 99th in success rate. They're 106th in limiting explosives in passing down. So I think even if Hartman gets behind the chains and off schedule, he's going to be able to connect on a lot of passes. He's got, I think, Greathouse and some of the other wide receivers are healthier this week. Hopefully they go back to just a rotation of 5 on the offensive line. I think on the other side of the ball, with Caleb Williams, is he going to be able to escape the pass rush? And I think you're going to see a lot of Caleb Williams doing that little spin move outside the tackle box once he gets pressure, because Notre Dame is 15th in pass rush. They're 9th in pressures created in all FBS teams. And right now, Notre Dame is swatting everything out of the air. They have 6 INTs and they have 25 PBUs. So, they're a very aggressive.
Yeah, 2 really good corners, which helps in this game.
2 good corners. So you got to watch over the middle where Caleb is probably going to look or comebacks. And, Notre Dame lives in cover one about 41% of the time. 20% of the time they're in cover 3. So if you go into Caleb's metrics over the past 2 years, he's got a sub success rate against cover 1 and cover 3. He thrives against quarters, which absolutely makes sense for how much he gets outside the tackle box and what he sees down the field. Notre Dame runs quarters like less than 10% of the time. They are over 60% in cover 1, cover 3, where Caleb has some problems. I mean, he has a high EPA. It doesn't matter what the coverage is. Caleb can throw high explosives, but he is not moving the chains and being as successful against cover 1 and cover 3. And for that reason, I like Notre Dame because of the ground game. I like Notre Dame because of the weather. I like Notre Dame because of the coverage they show on defense. Rain, wind, bring it. I don't care. Clear skies. I do project it. What's keeping me from making this a monster bet is the fact that I do power rate this at Notre Dame minus 2.5. So, it's not like there's a huge discrepancy, but I really like the Irish in this game. I think they bounce back clean.
Yeah. By the way, there's the receivers are going to have to make some plays. And I was reading on a message board. It was an article in the comments section, and Stuckey was getting roasted. I felt like it was my Twitter timeline after a college football or basketball Saturday. People just saying Stuckey's a fraud. Stuckey's got to go. And Stuckey's a fraud. Stuckey's got to go. Stuckey doesn't know what he's doing. But when they're obviously referring to Chancey Stuckey, the wide receivers coach for Notre Dame, but it was right. I was reading it. It just kept saying Stuckey's a fraud. Stuckey's got to go. But should be an interesting one in South Bend. Notre Dame does have, even if their defense steps up, their offense is going to have to move the ball, because the one thing that I worry about, with USC going fast, is that if they're not at least sustaining some drives and having success on the ground, where the fatigue could come in against this USC offense is in the second half with that defense, right? You're going up against that. So Notre Dame's going to have to sustain drives. Because of that, I think Notre Dame's defense is going to show up well here. And I think Notre Dame's going to try to run the ball. Their offensive line should play better this week. I assume they're just going to pick 5 guys and go with them. So with the weather too, I know this total's come down, but again, I lean under here at 60.5. I think under and Notre Dame are pretty correlated.